Hello and welcome to the 43 Minutes of Heaven we call the D1 Baseball podcast. That's Royale Young, number 43, by the way. Phillies from the Eagles from the 80s. Cornerback, first-round draft pick, excellent player. Was not enough to get us to the Super Bowl. I am your host, Michael Patrick Rooney. Did not play for the Eagles in the 80s, but big fan of Dick Vermeil. Our podcast, gentlemen, brought to us by our friends at S2 Cognition, the leading sports science cognitive tech platform that gives players visibility into how their brain is wired to make split-second decisions at game speed. S2 works with teams and coaches to administer the digital S2 eval that measures a player's millisecond reactions, such as their ability to swing on time and make contact, level of self-control to not chase pitches, anticipation of pitch location to swing at the right spot, and more. The results are detailed in a personalized S2 score report, giving athletes and teams insight on how to practice more efficiently to get better, faster. The report is also being used for drafting and recruitment purposes across the NCAA and MLB clubs. Right now, S2 works exclusively with clubs and organizations, but you can be on the lookout as this eval will be more broadly accessible to individual athletes over the next year. Holy heck, boys, that's a heck of a read, but we are
really good.
Better than last week, although
I will say there are some people on Twitter today, Runes, that feel like I need a cognitive test after our latest rankings.
Yes, Kendall. That is the voice of the great Kendall Rogers. We are also joined by the great Aaron Fitt. And Kendall, you're right. Like your GIF game on Twitter today was excellent, and it needed to be because people were not. Let's put a fact out there right now.
Mm-hmm.
15 of the top 25 teams lost their weekend. 15 of them. I mean, Jerry Maguire, help me, help you, right? Like, what are we supposed to do with that besides just get your GIF game right?
Yeah, I mean, the thing about it, when you have 15 teams, the top 25 lose, like there's only so much moving down that you can do with teams, like somebody's got to replace those teams. So it was just a very tumultuous week. And, I think when you look at the top of the rankings, obviously Tennessee came back after that first game to take that series from Alabama in emphatic fashion. And, Alabama fans had questions on, hey, why didn't we stay in the top 25? And that's something we debated last night. But at the end of the day, if you look at the last two games between those two teams, and I get that like half the game, I think the middle game, half the game was pretty competitive. But I mean, if you look at the rest of the series, I mean, you look on the scoreboard at the end of the day, Tennessee dominated the final two games. So had Tennessee not dominated the final two games, I think for me, I think the case for Alabama staying in would have been a little bit different, but that's not what happened. So it's just a weird week. And, I think when you look at the teams that just barely missed the rankings, I think we'd all agree there's some really, really interesting teams. I mean, Mercer, Wofford were two teams in the mix. Both those two teams play this weekend. Georgia Tech and Florida State, like as you mentioned so many times, like what do you do with all these ACC teams? They basically have identical resumes. Georgia Tech has a head-to-head over Florida State. Florida State just swept Louisville. What do you do? So there's just a lot of tough questions to answer. And then you have a team like A&M who's rising, but shouldn't be ranked just yet.
Fitzy, I thought you had the best idea last night, but we didn't run with it, and we should have. And your idea was we're going to just rank 8 teams and shut it down, and everyone else can just go on a pile in the corner.
What about 5?
Yeah, that works too.
Even 8 was a challenge. I mean, it was bonkers. And look, we got some heat because some teams were propped up in the rankings higher than they should have been, like Texas, like Texas Tech after the weekends that they had. Those are teams that we would ordinarily have hammered. But in order to do that, there's got to be someone else that you can move ahead of them. And when 15 teams in the rankings had losing weekends, it just really cushions how far you can drop a team that was in the top 10, And so sometimes your hands are just tied on these things. Like, we're not going to throw out the rankings and just like, you were number 7 this week, but you lost a series, so you're out. I mean, there's still somebody's got to be in those spots. And so, sometimes this is a messy business doing these top 25 rankings. And this was one of those weeks. Sometimes it all comes together and everything clicks nicely. But this one, it's like everybody's got warts. You start looking at those ACC teams. And I mean, you can make a strong case to rank Florida State, Georgia Tech, Pittsburgh, NC State, and you can make a strong case against all those teams. It's just, and from week to week, it changes. Last week, everyone was clamoring, "Oh, I can't believe you don't have Wake Forest ranked," and then they lose a series. And now we didn't hear anything from the Wake fans, but like next week we might again, because it's just round and round they go. These teams are all beating up on each other, and when you start to use that head-to-head tiebreaker, you tie yourself in knots because this team beat that team, but lost the other team, and round and round we go. I mean, like, do you rank Florida State? They had a great weekend. They swept Louisville, but they just lost a series to Georgia Tech, and on you go. Georgia Tech lost to whoever, and it's impossible. So right now, what we need is to see it's musical chairs. We need to see some consistency from some of those ACC teams to kind of separate that clump.
Kendall, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Okay. So the only good part of the rankings this week was the tweet that came to you that had to do with Bevo, who is the mascot for Texas, and Bevo's private parts. And the listeners can just go ahead and fill in their own blanks, or just check Kendall's feed and there's a screen grab on there. But you being a good Texan, we're aware that a Longhorn like Bevo no longer has his private parts. Is that a health thing, or why are we doing that to poor Bevo?
I don't know, man. I'm guessing if he's on, I have no idea. I'm guessing. I did not take ag science when I was at school, Texas A&M University, so I have no idea. But I'm guessing it has something to do with like him being on the sidelines of football and they don't want him to get rowdy. I don't know.
That's a good point. They need him locked in on football games.
I mean, I can't think of a better way to humble somebody than get rid of everything.
Yeah, that's right.
But here's the thing, people. Rankings are fun, and like I get it. Like, people get all mad about them, but do we have to explain this for like the 500th time? So one of the people that tweeted at me today said, "Well, we beat." I think it was an A&M fan. "Well, we beat Texas in a midweek game. How could they be ranked ahead of us?" People, for the last time. Well, this won't be the last time. This is not college football. One game doesn't like override an entire resume, and so that is that. College baseball is about winning a weekend series. But, Runes, real quick.
Except for when no one wins a weekend series. Then I don't know what it's about.
Correct.
Bizarro
one team, we talk about the teams that we couldn't drop, but one team I want to talk about real quick that we had some questions about Stanford going from 22 to 7. And, like, that's a big leap, right? But I'll tell you what, I was kind of digging back through Stanford's box scores actually last night when I was doing the Dean's List. The one thing that's really interesting about Stanford is the kind of the question mark we had about those guys is their bullpen. And, in the 2 wins against UCLA, Brant Prancer threw really well. Cody Jensen threw really well. Joey Dixon threw really well. So, like, maybe Stanford's like one of those teams that, like, coming into the season, we thought they would be that good where we have them ranked now. But, like, all of a sudden, Alex Williams, Quinn Matthews are being consistent. And now their bullpen's starting to kind of put all the pieces together. So I think Stanford's one of those teams that, they went from 22 to 7. That looks a little weird. But I think they're clearly like an elite talent, like elite team talent-wise, that's finally putting all those pieces together, especially in the pen.
And Brock Jones is starting to hit, for some power. He had a couple of home runs this weekend. I mean, a guy that only had 3 home runs, I think, heading into the weekend. He was supposed to be your centerpiece, your lineup, your first team All-American. And so if he can really heat up, that changes things for them too. But the other thing is, yes, it's a big jump that was facilitated by everybody in the middle. It seemed like losing their weekends, but also, I mean, all of a sudden Stanford's resume is pretty darn good. They've won road series in the last 3 weeks at Oregon State and at UCLA. They've won 4 straight conference series. They're 11-7 in the league. I mean, they had a rocky start and they've totally recovered from it. And they've got 2 high-end series wins that trump what a lot of other teams have done. So I actually think that it's justified even despite the fact that it was just a weird week with the rankings. I think that they feel like a top 10 team right now, which they didn't for a while, and now they do again.
Yeah, and I think to your point, Kendall, like they're kind of doing a Notre Dame right now. Like I think you got to give Stanford's coaching staff credit for this, where they've identified a weakness in the bullpen. So let's just not have traditional roles, right? Like Alex Williams, is getting the ball Friday night. And Drew Dowd looks like the Saturday guy now. And like, you mentioned Quinn Matthews is kind of hey, we'll use him on Friday and Saturday, or we'll start him on Sunday if he doesn't pitch. The Ty Uber kid, they could start him, they could relieve him. And then the kids you mentioned, Fitzy, their roles are not as magnified. And then, you start thinking about a weekend series in terms of, hey, we just got to figure out how to get the 27 outs 3 times, as opposed to, hey, we got to have a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and a 7th inning, 8th inning. So yeah, it's interesting. Hey, the other thing is the weekly picks. Holy cow, that people get excited, and I'm down for that. I had Bill Mosiello of TCU. I picked against TCU back to back times, and they've won both those series. So Bill and his wife Janelle's son Helton, who's named after Todd Helton, because Mo is not a big technology guy. They've got Helton policing my picks to see if I'm picking against the Frogs, and so it did give me a great opportunity to call Mo today and have a fun conversation with them. But like now I can't pick the Frogs, right? Like I'd be doing them a disservice if I were to pick them. By the way, Fitzy, I know this is not the weekly. You're muted, Kendall. This is not the weekly pick show, but Fitzy, you deserve props because you like Miami's Twitter account tried to intimidate you, and you had none of it. And I cowered and took Miami last weekend, and you stood right in their face and called the shot. So good on you, Fitzy.
Yeah, I did. I took that one like a man, but it's been a rocky road for me, up and down here lately. After really dominating the first half of the pick season, it's been a little more interesting. And you remember, Roos, last week I had TCU was on the spreadsheet heading into the podcast, and then I talked myself out of the pick right there on the air.
Oh,
I mean,
no.
it was disgraceful. It was a disgraceful lack of fortitude. I regret it. I want to apologize to America. It won't happen again. We're going to commit to our picks going forward. No more of this waffling.
Rune, did you say you took TCU against Texas?
No, I took whatever.
Okay. I thought you were saying you picked TCU and they won those series.
So two series in a row, 2 times in a row, I've picked against TCU and lost, and so now maybe I've won in the meantime too.
Hey, you got to be careful letting Mo find out your picks, man.
Yeah, well, believe me, the only way he could find out is from his son Helton. So he's got technology.
Hey, I picked against TCU twice in a super regional. He let me hear about it. So
that's right. I love it.
Mo's my boy, so I can rag
He's
on
the
him.
best.
Yeah, he let me hear about that a little bit.
Yes, anything that gives us an excuse to talk to Coach Mosiello is great.
Oh, all right, one of the best.
Boys, speaking of mea culpas, I need to share one too. Landon Sims, Team Lando. Landon Sims is one of the best pitchers in college baseball, I'm going to say, in the last 5 years. I mean, instrumental in Mississippi State winning a national title last year. I consider myself a college baseball wonk, college baseball nerd. I have now on live lit microphones, called Landon Sims Logan Sims 3 times. Not once, 3 times.
That's unacceptable.
Unacceptable is like all caps unacceptable. And I swear that there's a Logan Sims from like the early 2000s that played baseball, was a big draft pick of the Braves. But as I've Googled this, that is just totally made up in my brain. There is no such person named Logan Sims drafted by the Braves ever, not in any decade. And I've got a Logan Sims who is a lawyer in Kentucky, seems to have very nice practice. I've got a Logan Sims who was Defensive Player of the Week for Christian Academy of Kentucky recently. Congratulations to him. I get to get a fumble recovery and like a block kick or something. I've got a Logan Sims in Charlotte, North Carolina, who's a business development operations specialist, which sounds spectacular. And I've got a Logan Sims who was an accomplished wrestler at University of Tennessee at Chattanooga. Go Mocs. But I got no Logan Sims. There's a couple Logan Sims. There's one guy playing junior college baseball, I guess at Snead College, Snead Community College. Anyway, I like you, Fitzy, I also want to apologize to America because I don't know who this Logan Sims I speak of is, but man, it is seared in my brain, and Landon Sims deserves better. He deserves way better. So there you go. That's what I got for you guys.
You're well into your 50s now. You're an old man. I think people can give you a little pass on this one.
I'm officiating weddings, but I can't remember Landon Sims' name. So there you go.
I think if you mess that up again, we'll send Tony Vitello after you.
Oh, wow. Okay, so now let's do that. Let's have that conversation.
How about that little segue, huh?
Yeah, look at you. See, that's what
pros pro. Big dog.
Pros pro. That's right. All right, so let's talk about this. We got game 2 of the Alabama series. Alabama gives Tennessee their first loss on Friday night or Thursday night, I guess, as it were. I can't remember if they were Thursday or Friday. So in the middle of the second game, there's a big, Chase. The most important part of this whole scenario is Chase Dolander takes a line drive off the arm. And Kendall, have you heard how he is yet, or is still to be determined?
No, I'll check on it, but I mean, he walked off on his own power, so he should be fine.
He returned with a sling, though, didn't he? Is that what I heard?
Did he?
Did have a sling on, is what I was told too. But here's the bottom line.
If you have a sling on, maybe not.
So Tennessee's fan base is upset the long story short is Frank Anderson got tossed, Tony Vitello got tossed, then bumped the umpire Vitello-Macias, and now is a 4-game suspension. So Tennessee's fan base. Oh, go ahead, Ken, Fitzy.
That was a pretty aggressive bump. I mean, he charged, he bull rushed him basically and gave him a chest bump. I mean, I know it wasn't like, he didn't knock him over, but like that was totally.
Yeah, I mean, it was a bad chest bump, but the acting job by Macias is pretty awesome too.
Yeah,
I mean,
and they have history. They have history. Remember,
history?
Yeah, right. From Omaha last year.
Hey, Ross Kivett weighed in. Did y'all see that yesterday?
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah, very clever. He did Ace Ventura. That was very clever.
I will say, and I was, I was all over Macias in Omaha for that Kivett situation. I thought he was, way out of line there. I thought that was poor. But in this case, I don't care if you think it's a flop or whatever. Like a guy bull rushes you and bumps you. Like I'm not saying it was the hardest contact, but it was a very aggressive move. Certainly, he deserved the 4-game suspension. And he should be a little embarrassed. I mean, it's embarrassing. I know you're out there trying to stick up for your team, whatever. But like, come on, you can't do that. You just can't do that.
Yeah, it's so interesting. I think two things can be right. Multiple things can be true at the same time. Is the expression that comes to me where. I've seen Tennessee, and in fairness, I feel like almost all the Tennessee fan base has said, hey, you bump an umpire like that, 4 games is a very fair suspension. I haven't heard anybody dispute that. Now, there is a lot of, vitriol going Vitello-Macias's ways. But, I think here's the thing. Frank Anderson made a beeline at the Alabama dugout. That is completely unacceptable. Like, as highly as I regard Frank Anderson, and he's edgy and that's his thing, but I mean, like, that is the catalyst event, right? Frank Anderson didn't even address Chase Dolander on the turf. Frank Anderson went directly at the Alabama dugout. So right there, Frank Anderson has earned an ejection in my mind. So the other umpire, not Vitello-Macias, I think the second base umpire, I don't know his name and I need to learn it. He actually did a really nice job calming Frank down. Here's the problem. We still have an assistant coach in the middle of the field. That's a complete no-go. And then, I think as Tennessee fans, they said that, hey, Vitello-Macias actually escalated the situation instead of de-escalated. And I actually think that's a fair argument. But
he actually did kind of do that. Like everybody was kind of talking and it seemed like he kind of went at Vitello just a little bit.
Yeah, and maybe you could argue that at Frank too. Like, it seemed like Frank had calmed down, but he still didn't leave. Like, he's still not allowed to be in the middle of the field, unless he's talking to his player, which he's still at this point had not gotten anywhere near Chase Dolander. Like, he had his back turned to Chase Dolander, and so I don't know. It's a mess.
So go ahead, I have two thoughts real quick. Number one, I actually went back and listened to the audio, and I actually would urge Tennessee fans, if they actually have a clip that like where you can hear it, send it to me. But like, people were saying they were like laughing at Dolander when he was hurt. Like, I went back and listened to the audio when Frank went out there, and I didn't hear anything. And I don't know where the crowd mic is there, but I heard like no laughing on the audio mic. So I don't know.
There's no way. Are you kidding me?
I don't know where
There's
that came
no way
from.
a dugout is laughing at a guy writhing around. There's no
that was the claim.
way. That's BS.
Yeah, that was the claim. But I didn't. I went back and listened to the audio on the broadcast, and I didn't hear anything because that would have been, honestly, like, I'm not saying it didn't happen, but that'd be surprising coming from a Brad Bohannon team.
It didn't happen. There's no way. There's no way kids are going to laugh at a player getting hurt. Forget it. Zero chance.
So the second thing here. And this is one thing about Tennessee. You guys know me, and like Tennessee fans, you can't get mad at me because I'm like the one person who actually kind of loves the chippiness. I love being rough around the edges, like the bad boys. Like, I love that. But at the end of the day, after they lost the opening game of the series, like, Tennessee like got offended that Alabama like celebrated big. And my whole thing is like, if you're going to roll around with fur coats and daddy hats, which I find absolutely hilarious. You're going to pimp every home run. Like, I love it. Like, I think it's kind of awesome. Like, everybody needs a villain. Like, I love those things. But if you're going to do all that, like, you can't complain after the game that Alabama's celebrating like crazy on your home turf. Like, you just can't complain about that.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just found that a little bizarre.
Yeah.
It's almost as bizarre as Arkansas taking pot shots at Tennessee after taking a series from LSU.
Yeah, Robert Moore may end up.
That was odd.
He may regret that, and it felt like an innocent enough comment, but he didn't find the right words, and it didn't come out.
Why is Arkansas thinking about Tennessee right now?
Yeah. I don't know.
Very odd. Very bizarre.
I would say this, boys, about Tennessee, just to put a bow on them. In the third game of the series, we got to see like peak Tennessee. Like this is an unbelievable team, like unbelievably awesome. Like they took, I think Alabama's very, very good. I left that weekend thinking, man, Alabama's way better than I thought they were. Tennessee took them apart in the third game, like took them apart. And the way they did it, just line drives up the middle, running game, elite defense, like Drew Beam, best third game starter in college baseball, period. Tennessee just manhandled them, and Alabama was game. It wasn't like Alabama just laid down. And I also think Tony Vitello has hired an unbelievable staff. Like, Frank Anderson gives them great pitching and an edge. By the way, Josh Elander's the guy we're not talking enough about. He did a unbelievable job. Like, Josh Elander's the perfect complement to Tony V and Frank. Very bright. He's been around some great baseball people, calm demeanor, great recruiter. I mean, I think Tony Vitello, deserves a lot of credit. The way he's constructed this coaching staff, brilliant. I mean, just absolutely brilliant. Even, Richard Jackson, I don't know as well. Ross Kivett, I think, is a star in coaching. So anyway.
You forgot Sean McCann, by the way. The mad scientist behind the scenes. Like, if you talk to people around college baseball, they think that guy's absolutely brilliant. And like, Sean's one of the more interesting people to ever meet, but he's a brilliant baseball guy.
He was at Kansas State for a while too, right?
Yeah.
I want to say was he there when they went to the Supers?
He was their recruiting coordinator on those teams with the Kivett played on. They're really the best teams they've had.
Yep. Yeah. I'll just say this and then we'll put a bow on Tennessee, guys.
Okay.
I think their Achilles heel is just the umpire thing. They really get tangled up with umpires a lot, and I don't think it serves them. I think it levels the playing field. If you watch that midweek game with Tennessee Tech, they spent a lot of that game fighting with the umpire instead of just taking care of business against Tennessee Tech. So, when you have that white hot flame, I think it burns both ways. Am I picking against Tennessee to do anything? No way in heck. Like, they're so freaking awesome. It's an unbelievable team. But yeah, that man, they do not like umpires. I'll tell you, I don't think umpires, if I was an umpire, I wouldn't want to do their games. I mean, it's a scary proposition. It's electric, especially at Lindsey Nelson Stadium. But man, are they, to your point, Kendall, as a fan, gosh, are they fun. I mean, they are so
yeah, you
fun.
just can't, if you're UT, like, you just can't, when your goal at this point, when you're 33, was it 33-3? When you're 33-3, you're like, your goal at this point is a national championship. And once you get to Omaha, you cannot be letting, Jeffrey Macias, like, bother you. Like, you can't let him be, like, get in your dome. And there are times where the umpire get in their dome a little bit.
And I'll tell you guys, I think umpire tension is in our future. I'm writing a little bit about that in my Runes report this week, where, just in general, umpires, there's a lot of taunting of each other in college baseball this year, like just the in your face. That's like the new thing, right? I think the kids are very comfortable with it. I think it's harder on adults than it is on the kids, but it's hard on umpires because they're trying to keep the game under control. They don't want the game to explode. Then you've got a very controversial hit by pitch rule, which gets people riled up towards the umpires. Then we've got this pitch clock. And remember, the technology's helped us with the pitch clock a lot, but we did have an incident in LSU, Arkansas, where a hitter gets called out to end an inning. And I just worry about all the, as every day passes in the season, the tension just ratchets up. The pitch clock's going to get called even stiffer, right? There's going to be more eyeballs. And I feel like the umpires, we're just handing them lit dynamite sticks and saying, good luck. And I don't know. It's going to be interesting.
And it just still feels like the enforcement of the pitch clock thing in particular is just so random and sporadic. It's like you still don't see it very often. And every once in a while, it's just like, I don't know. I like the idea. I get it. But I mean, the whole thing, the pitch clock thing feels a little unnecessary to me. Like, how much time are we actually saving? But that's it. I'm more comfortable with that than I am with hit by pitch rule. Yeah. I hate the hit by pitch rule. I mean,
I'm still team. Yeah, go ahead. Aaron.
We had it fine. If the umpire deems that you lean into a pitch or you stuck your elbow or whatever, stay in the box, but it's a ball. Like, that's what it should be. The pitcher should not be rewarded for throwing a bad pitch. I mean, and if the player wants to take his chances and risk injury and try to pull one over on the umpire, well, he can do that at his own risk, but the umpire can tell him to stay put. it is beyond reason for that to be result in the strike. I mean, I get they're trying for deterrence here, but like also half the time, you put the umpire in a position of trying to determine intent when maybe you just misread a pitch. Maybe it's a backup breaking ball that, freezes you. I mean, and it's just so arbitrary to ask the umpire to make that judgment when it results in a strike, especially in a pivotal situation. I really hate that rule. I hate that. Yeah. I hate everything about that rule.
It's an inappropriate penalty. I'm with you 100%, Fitzy, and it's not a deterrent because they're college players and they're not going to change their stripes. You're not going to get 20-year-olds to just jump out of the way like a player in professional baseball would. They think differently. They're wired differently. So,
and is it really that big of a problem that we need to try to create a deterrent? I mean, again, like if a kid wants to try it, let him try it. It's at his own risk. It's not like we had an epidemic of kids suffering catastrophic injuries by trying to get hurt. I mean, it didn't really do anything that terrible to the game. It was bad in 2007 when we had the Fullerton-Irvine ridiculous 13-inning game with all the HBPs, but we, enforced the rule then. All right. Like you could stay in the box. That was all we needed. We didn't need to take it a step further. It's so dumb.
Agreed. Hey, boys, I got a question for you. So I've been thinking a lot about the ACC, and like there's 11 ACC teams with legitimate regional resumes right now. Like they, to this point, they're in position to make a regional, and then the two teams that are out, not in the 13 or the 11, are Duke, who's been to 3 straight regionals and 2 super regionals, and then Clemson, who I think had one of the longest unbeaten streaks of the season to start. And then, BC is pretty much done, but they've got Luke Gold, who I think is a big leaguer. So just the league is fantastic this year. Here's where my brain is right now. I think the ACC is getting more tournament teams than the SEC. I think the ACC is going to have more NCAA tournament teams than the SEC. Do you agree or disagree?
I mean, I agree. We had a chat question about this today, and I had the ACC at 10. I think Pittsburgh, as of right now, would get in. I mean, I think their RPI is like 42 or 43. They've got a winning record in the ACC. They've got some high-end series wins. And, of course, they got screwed last year. They should have been in last year. So you can't guarantee it. But, I mean, I would have 10 in right now.
Yeah, I do too. And that's without North Carolina, which is still in contention at 8 and 10 and 48 RPI. Like they're still right there at striking distance. Clemson would be the other one that is just 4 and 10, has a very, very, low likelihood, but you never know. And even Duke at 6 and 12. I mean, like having just swept a big series against Notre Dame, like wouldn't shock me if they made a run. At the very least, those teams could play spoiler, which would maybe bump this down. I have a feeling it's going to wind up being more like 9, just because somebody's probably going to fade. These teams are beating each other up so much. But that said, I mean, compare it with the SEC. I mean, what are the slam dunk regional teams in the SEC? You've got Tennessee, you've got Arkansas, and then, I would say Georgia, Auburn, A&M, these are all teams with winning records in the conference in Alabama. So what's that? 5, 6? And then you've got Florida, Vandy, LSU, that all have losing records in the league. And, but they all feel like they're probably going to be in regionals. And so I don't know. I think we're sitting about 9 for the SEC, could be about 9 for the ACC. Could wind up being about the same.
Yeah. And it's going to be interesting.
Yeah, Florida could wind up being a really interesting test case, guys. I mean, Florida is, assuming Florida is kind of up and down like they have been the last few weeks, and frankly, all season long. I mean, they could be one of those teams. It's like 13 and 17 on Selection Monday, and their RPI is like 16. And you kind of wonder, like, what does a committee do with a team like that?
They'll be in if that's the case. Yeah, I mean, there's precedent there for 13 SEC teams with top 20 RPIs. They almost always get in if you're inside the top 20.
You can never make a rule like this, boys, but I had this thought today. I might even write about it, but it's like, I understand the plight of the power programs where their schedules are so difficult. I mean, like the 30-game schedule that they're playing, I'm just going to pick on the ACC and the SEC, or, the Pac-12, the Big 12. I mean, I get it. It's really rough. But I look at some of these teams, Rutgers, just pick your team, Mercer, Grand Canyon. Who was in my brain? UNLV's having a great season. And what's the truth? If they don't win the conference tournament, they're not getting in. And that's part of that's okay. But what I don't like is, and I'm going to pick on Clemson from a couple years ago, where they got in the NCAA tournament. I think it was 2019, and they had an under 500 record for their last like 25 games, under 500. but they had racked up enough ACC wins to get in. And it just like, I'm okay with a Power 5 team with a 500 record getting in, but not like limping in. Like,
Right.
show me that you're hot. Like, I don't know if that makes any sense. Like, I'd rather have UNLV get rewarded than a Power 5 program just limp in based on, hey, well, they crossed the 14 and 16 finish line. That just feels,
Yeah.
I agree. And the committee does, it says in the handbook there, I think that one of their characteristics is how a team finishes. What is it, the last 15 games or whatever it is, Kendall? But I feel like they apply that unevenly. There are times when they say, look at the record over the last, 4 weeks. It's poor. And they use that as a reason to keep a team out. And other times they just ignore it. So, I mean, as usual with everything with the committee, from committee to committee, they just emphasize different factors. But I do agree with you, Kent, Runes. I'm much more likely to think that a team that surges late and winds up with the same record as a team that falters late, I want to give the advantage to the hot team. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Sure. And the other thing too that I'd like to see, and we'll see if it kind of continues the rest of the season, but like the Sun Belt sitting there with a number 5 RPI right now, like I'd like to see the Sun Belt get more teams they usually get in. If you look at Mercer and Wofford, both those teams have won a lot of games this year. Wofford's won some high-end series. They won the series of Dallas Baptist. They're a team that even if their RPI is in like the 40s or 50s, if they have a really good record, I'd like to see them get in.
Yep. All right, boys, I'm going to stall for a second while you do something. If you're on our website, I want you to pull up our preseason rankings. And by the way, people, I want to remind you, because I need reminding, I'm assuming everyone listening is on our website. The tabs across the top are so underutilized by me. There's a prospects tab that is amazing. The stats tab has a national leaders section, which updates real time when the NCAA, I'm not ripping on the NCAA site, but the NCAA site only updates on Monday mornings. So if you're like me over the course of the weekend and you want to know if Sonny D is still leading in those major categories, our site will, it will get you that help. So there's also a tab called resources and the 2022 season preview central, and then you can get to the rankings. So are you guys there?
I'm there.
I am there.
Okay. So here's my question, boys. In 2021 in Omaha, I'm not taking anything away from Mississippi State. Mississippi State absolutely won the national title fair and square. It was an incredible team and an incredible achievement. But if you put a gun to my head and ask me who was playing the best baseball in Omaha that I saw, the answer was NC State.
Yes.
That was the scariest team in Omaha. Now, Mississippi State could have absolutely beaten them in the finals. There's no question that could have happened. But NC State was hot and talented and scary. We'll never know. Mississippi State is the national title. There is no asterisk. There shouldn't be, fair and square. But NC State was a good club. But NC State was also a club that was ranked number 13 in the 2021 preseason. And then they kind of disappeared. And I don't remember their exact record, but they got off to a heinous start, and they kind of disappeared. I'm almost certain they were unranked for a while, and then they came screaming. Well, yeah, they must have been, because they were a 2 seed in the regionals. So that's my question to you guys. When you look at our preseason rankings for 2022, is there any NC State in there that has kind of gotten off to a bad start and kind of hiding in the weeds that could make a big run? Do you see any candidates there?
I would say, first off, Stanford is the team that's already started to make that run. That started the season kind of similarly to the way NC State started last year, because I think NC State they started their turnaround around I think it was around week 6 last year, which kind of lines up with when Stanford started its turnaround. So that's one team that I think that it's already happened. So maybe that's
a good call.
But if you're looking for a team that hasn't maybe done that yet, I mean, I still think it's Florida State. I'm all in on pitching being such a limited commodity in college baseball this year. And I still think they have it. And I know it's been a little up and down, and, Ross Dunn didn't have a good start this week. And, Hubbard had a couple of rocky outings there, but ultimately I still believe more in their arms than most of these teams. And that's why right now they're not in the top 25. Now they just had a big weekend. They've been up and down, but they have won 7 of their 9 weekend series. Like, they've had a pretty good year. But for a team that's currently not ranked in our top 25, that was number 11 in the preseason, I feel like I'm buying in at a good. Not that I've ever sold. I've held this stock the whole way. I'm in on Florida State.
Yes, you sure have. Kendall, what about you? Would anybody jump out in that realm?
I think Florida State's a good pick. I mean, the other team, I mean, we still have them ranked, and they're kind of just hanging on by a thread. The other team, I just feel like there's got to be so much more left in the tank for them is LSU. That's just a team that's been so up and down, whether it's defensively, on the mound. And I just think if you look at a club in the postseason, there are a lot of teams in college baseball and a lot of teams that are ranked that I would much rather play in the postseason than have to deal with LSU's lineup.
Mm-hmm.
And so I get that LSU's hanging on by a thread, and I get that they're ultra inconsistent. They're borderline just awful defensively. But that is a team that I could see getting on a run in the postseason and really kind of beating some teams with ease if everything kind of comes together for them.
Yep. Yeah, two teams for me that are they're not. I don't know that they can be NC State. I mean, I think we're going to look back on that NC State team and see some big leaguers, and just that Evan Justice was just ridiculous, and Chris Villeman, ironically, East Carolina was sitting there at 12 in our preseason, and they have basically disappeared except for the AAC standings where they're in first place. And does East Carolina have the talent to be NC State without Wisenhunt? I don't think that, but man, they're just, I don't know. It just feels like if ever ECU is going to do an Omaha run, maybe this is the year when they're under, there's no bullseye on their back right now. The other one is UC Irvine. Now they got to get in. I still just think UC Irvine's really good, and I think they'd be really hard to play in the postseason. But, you mentioned it in our chat earlier, Kendall. I mean, man, the Big West is, I don't even know what to think about their postseason. I mean, there's three teams I really like. I really like Irvine. I really like Cal Poly, and I really like Santa Barbara. But they ain't getting three teams in. There is no way in Hades they're getting three teams in. I'm having a tough time seeing how they get two in, honestly.
Yeah. Hey, Arizona is the other team I could see, guys. They're playing pretty bad right now. But I mean, they've got plenty of talent on the mound, and certainly offensively to make a run. And that's a team that a lot of those kids on that team were in Omaha last year. So it would not shock me if Arizona went on a run the postseason either.
And I'll say this, God help me, but I can't quite quit Ole Miss, and I'm sure everyone else has because they're 5-10 in the SEC, and right now they look dead in the water. And they're just sputtering through and just lost series to South Carolina. They lost series to Alabama last week, or swept at home. I mean, there's nothing to really get excited about here. I just, that position player group has a lot of talent and a lot of track record. And I gotta feel like there's gotta be something still to come here. Isn't there? I mean, is this really it? Are they just going to limp out like this and go out like a bunch of suckers? Or are they going to fight? I mean, are they going to figure it out?
I'll say this, Aaron. I think if Ole Miss loses that series of State this weekend, I think they're done.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely
fair. They're toast. And
absolutely fair.
It looks like Jack Washburn's out for 2 weeks with a pulled hammy. So they won't have him in the rotation this weekend.
Not great.
And at Arkansas, at LSU, I mean, tough place to play.
Or A&M at Swayze, but I'm just going to go ahead and say if they lose that series, they're done.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that's going out on a limb. They'd be 6-12 at that point in the league if they lose 2 out of 3 at home this weekend. I think, but let's say they win that series at home against Mississippi State. Let's say they can find a way to win 2 out of 3. Then you're 7-11. You still have Missouri at home, which is sweepable, and you've got A&M at home, which is you would think would be an okay matchup as for a home series. Then you got 2 tough road series. I mean, it's not an easy road, but they're not dead yet. I'm just saying, I think they're almost dead, but they're not dead yet, and I'm not quite giving up on them.
And you guys just nailed it, right? Like they are. This is the weekend, because I don't think Ole Miss has won a series over Mississippi State since before Jake Mangum was there. Like I don't think they've won a series in like 6 years. So if they could flip that this weekend, and Mississippi State's more vulnerable than they've been during that time period. But yeah, so it really, like, Ole Miss's season is on the line this weekend. But it just, again, it's just so messy. Like Peyton Chatagnier, who's supposed to be their Energizer bunny, isn't even playing right now. He's just played himself out of the lineup. Hayden Dunhurst, who I thought was a big draft prospect, is like they're taking them out of games, and oh my gosh, the way they lost the South Carolina game the other day was just unwatchable. I mean, they're not themselves. It's crazy.
Would you guys at this point, if you had to place a bet on one team to make a regional, would you bet on Ole Miss or Mississippi State? Because maybe the answer is State. Maybe I'm just looking at the wrong place here.
I think it'd be Mississippi State for me.
How do they stack up RPI wise? Ole Miss is a little better, right?
Yeah.
The thing I like about State is the fact State really does a nice job like late in games. Like they clawed their way back and won 2 of those Alabama games. I mean, they got a gift from Cole Foster against Auburn in the series opener, but you still have to give them credit for winning the game. They got the big hits at the end. They at least have shown an ability for some heroics late, whereas I don't feel like Ole Miss has shown that at all.
Yeah. Ole Miss is a good call in this genre, though. Like it is shocking how a top 5 offense with literally every piece back has become a bottom 100 offense. I mean, it's just unthinkable. It doesn't even make any sense.
Doesn't make any sense to
me. What makes more sense, Ole Miss or what South Carolina has done so far? With series wins over Vandy, Texas,
Ole Miss.
Who's at Ole Miss?
Yeah.
And yet, where's their RPI right now?
62.
62.
Yeah. Well, Mississippi State 80, Ole Miss 55. Yeah. Like all these teams are in trouble, clearly. But I also think that none of them are quite dead.
Yep. Yeah, it's crazy. Boys, I had one more topic for us. I think one of the things that's kind of an underlying issue is like getting healthy, not being healthy down the stretch. Mm-hmm. There's a couple. So if I'm not mistaken, Nick Maldonado threw for Vandy this weekend. I didn't even know that he had been out this whole time. Like I just kind of spaced it. And so it sounds like he pitched this weekend. That changes my viewpoint on Vandy. Another one I had is Jake Fennings. I think you referred to that, Fitzy. He pitched this weekend for Oregon State. That's huge for them. Obviously with Tennessee, they trump everything, right? It doesn't matter, right? It's like, of course it matters if Chase Dolander's healthy, but if he's not, Blade Tidwell just jumps in there. So they're almost impervious. Tyler Martin is playing every day for Florida State. Chandler Simpson playing every day again for Georgia Tech. I think is a big one. Kendall, Oregon their pitcher is done, but Drew Cowley is almost back or something like that.
Yeah, he's supposed to be back this week, and they also got the guy who's supposed to be the number 3 starter coming in the season. They've got him back. His last name escapes me.
It's not Mosiello, is it? Andrew Mosiello?
No.
But he is pitching again. Like that's a good pull, Fitzy. Like he was in the rotation, and that's big. Yep. Any other injury guys or things that like let's keep that top of mind. Like I'm kind of hunting that information right now because I think that changes things a little bit too. So, by the way, Fitzy, your Stanford call is a great call because, like, remember Elliot Avent and those guys were trying to make Evan Justice a starter last year, and when they moved him back to the bullpen is when it all clicked. I almost feel like what Stanford's doing with Quinn Matthews is a similar move. Like, hey, you're just going to be the guy we go to when winning the series is on the line. So, very interesting.
But they started him this week, right? Just because they hadn't used him the first 2 days.
Mm-hmm. That's how I interpreted it. But
which is a little different because like in Justice's case, they just realized, hey, we need him at the back. Period.
Yep.
But you're right. I see what you're saying. Is this is the guy we need to ride him however it takes. I mean. We've seen plenty of examples of that over the years of guys kind of thriving in that hybrid role. So yeah, like a Lewis Coleman, comes to mind, that kind of a guy. So yeah, maybe he'll be in that kind of role.
This is such a fun time of year. I catch myself doing all these weird deep dives. I'll give you guys a quiz question on one of my deep dives. Last year's super regional teams that were in last year's super regionals, 16 total. Guess how many of them were in our preseason top 25?
14.
Kendall?
12.
12 is the answer. This year, I started to try and think about this year, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't even know. I've got PTSD on our rankings right now. I don't even know. I can't even remember who's in the preseason rankings. It's been.
I was almost scared to go look.
Yeah. Yeah, I wouldn't. I'm not ready to do it.
There's not anything. I mean, if you look at the preseason rankings, though, there's not really anything too bad.
Yeah.
I mean, who would have thought Mississippi State and Ole Miss would fall flat on their face? Like that. That's a, if Mississippi State has Lando, like that's a totally different Sims. Totally different team.
Mm-hmm.
Totally different Sims also.
Yeah, if they have Logan Sims, they might be. I mean, look at this guy as a lawyer, a biz development ops specialist, a wrestler.
By the way, we didn't really talk about it. Aaron, like you've seen him. Could you see NC State going on a run again and getting back to Omaha?
Yeah, but I'm still. I guess here's the difference for me. Sam Highfield is such an X factor. I think that's the key to the whole deal. And he hasn't been healthy, and that to me is that's going to make or break it for me. I mean, as much as I like Chris Villeman at the back a lot, and Matt Willardson is certainly capable, but you got to have you got to have the dudes there. And last year, as great as their offense was, it was really good. I mean, they had the dudes on the mound, right? Highfield was really pitching great. Wilson was pitching great, at the end there. I mean, they had their 5 guys. They had Justice. I mean, they had 5 guys. That's all you need. You need to have 5 dudes, though. And right now, I don't know that they do. So I like their offense. I like their position player group a lot, but I don't know if they have the pitching to make another Omaha run.
Fitzy, this is, I get really excited right now. Like when I start thinking about there's 5 weekends left in the regular season, like 5 awesome weekends. There's so much at stake. And then conference tournament week is one of my favorite weeks of the year. There's no week that's more favorite for me than conference tournament week, where there's college baseball on, meaningful college baseball on every day.
Yeah.
And then we're in the postseason. I mean, it's like, it doesn't feel, it feels surreal, but it feels awesome at the same time. It's a long way of getting to my question. Have you, Fitzy, decided what conference tournament you're going to, or are you still courting tournaments?
I am courting. I'm probably leaning ACC in Charlotte. It's just an easier travel. Travel is such a pain these days, and for a lot of reasons. Everything about air travel has just really gotten to be.
Aaron has a great track record with travel, so
yes,
I sure great. Do. I would be tempted to go to the Pac-12 tournament, but I think Shoddy's already called dibs on that one, and David Seifert may head there also.
Goodness.
Big 12 is where's Big 12 this year? Is it Oklahoma
It's a
City?
Globe Life.
It's a Globe Life. Oh, that's kind of fun.
What do you think of that Globe Life? Is that place awesome, Kendall, or is it? It doesn't look awesome on TV. If I'm just being totally honest.
I call it like a Costco. Like it's like a big warehouse. It's really nice.
Okay, so on the inside, it's a great experience. It looks
it's really nice, but like it's like the most stale place you'll ever go for a ball game.
It does not look. Nice. It doesn't look great on TV. Like, would you agree?
I mean, it's
Fitzy?
really nice on the inside. Like the concourse is immaculate, but again, it's just like you're in a fancy warehouse. No, I'm not a huge fan. I think it's a nice part, but I'm not a huge fan.
Oklahoma City's awesome too. Like that's 2 great choices for the Big 12. But Oklahoma City is really cool. The way the ballpark's right there in the middle of downtown, and that's awesome.
Ooh, and somebody was saying that the Conference USA tournament is at the Pete this year.
It is.
Might have to send Eth over there for that one.
That would be a lot of fun.
How far? That's not far where he is, Mobile to Hattiesburg, right? That feels reasonable.
No, I think it's just a couple of hours.
Yeah, gotta love it. Kendall, who do the 10U Waves have this weekend?
Hold on, I can tell you.
And is there any way we can become the Snow Leopards again, or is the Snow Leopards just a chapter in our past?
Well,
Waves is kind of weak.
The Waves disappointed me a little bit.
Ooh.
They kind of kicked the ball around on Saturday and lost to the worst team in the league. So we got makeup to do this weekend. They play the 10U Panthers. So I'll have to do my scouting report on the Panthers later this week.
So I've been told on Twitter we need a nickname for Riley. I was gonna go the Houston Hammer, but then all of her teammates are from Houston, so it's kind of like. What's your guys' town? Are you guys in Houston?
We're technically in Spring Klein.
Spring Klein, that's the same
town?
So
it's 2 different towns, but like you can put either or on like a envelope.
You can really?
Yes.
What in the world? Wait, we've got 2 different names for the same town.
Do you guys use the U.S. Postal Service, or does East Texas have its own postal service? That's great.
You can put
Spring
you can
climb.
put 2 different towns in there, and it still goes to the same house.
Oh, that's
my
awesome.
goodness, that
So
is
you guys,
awesome.
that'll be your homework for next week.
Yeah,
and if fans have any ideas, they can kind of drop it in there too.
Yeah, Riley Rogers. I like that there's alliteration naturally in her name, so I'm leaning towards alliteration. So we'll keep.
Hey,
working
real quick, Runes.
Yes, sir.
Pick 3 questions out of here real quick to get to.
Oh yeah, sure.
Because we did have a lot of questions, so I just want to make sure these people aren't throwing them in there for absolutely no reason.
Yeah, if you see one in there,
a couple of them. Just pick 2.
If you see one that you really like, let me know too.
I did notice a Mississippi State fan in here and said that Parker Stinnett had an MRI today. That's not optimal.
Expo SS says only team from Mississippi going to regional Southern Miss. How about that as a real possibility? Like that's not unreal. Like that could happen.
It's a possibility. I just think at least one of the Ole Miss Mississippi State group will make a regional.
I think so too. I would bet on one of those teams finding a way. And I know it's right now it looks like an uphill battle for both of them, but I'm with you. I don't think either one of those teams is done.
I think you guys nailed it. Whoever wins that is like a Super Bowl series for those two teams. Like whoever wins that series is got a real chance. By the way, Pitt, I don't know if I watched that broadcast yesterday. Mike Monaco and Gabby Sanchez did a great job, but Pitt is really hurt. I mean, Mike Bell and that staff have done an unreal job. But does Pitt really have the kind of depth to survive those types of injuries? Because 2 of their big series wins were cold weather where their toughness really gets accentuated, but those days are behind us, right?
They're going to Miami this week, so
that
feels like a get-right spot for the Hurricanes. As frisky as his Pitt punch is, and they're lovable. Pittsburgh, all that stuff. I'm in on all that. Love the job that Mike Bell has done. It's a big-time series win for them at less than full strength. But, boy, I do worry about the sustainability depending on – I don't know what the current status is on some of those injuries. We got to do some homework on that.
I'll be talking to Coach Bell tomorrow. I'll find out.
So yeah, get us some deets on that because that's crucial. I mean, there was a shadow unit out there in the outfield, and you say they lost Guy Duff too this weekend, didn't they?
Yeah, he's the one on the crazy triple play that it looked like a bad separated shoulder. Like Kyle Teal did not do it on purpose, but Kyle Teal, there was no path to home plate. I wish umpires did better at calling that. Like there was no place for Sky Duff to go, and now he did head first slide, which is an absolute no-go, and he got smashed. I mean, it was ugly. Oof.
Yeah.
By the way, Hitman Hudson. Oh, go ahead.
He's their heart and soul guy too. He's the spark plug for that
3-hole. Yeah. Hitman Hudson was asking, could Texas State host a regional? Nerdcast this week. Hitman, jump in.
I don't think the RPI is going to get there.
No.
It's in like the 50s. He also asked about A&M. A&M's really interesting. So we had a lot of questions about those guys. I think if they take the Arkansas series, they'll be ranked next week. I'd like to see them do it for one more week. I will say this about A&M, though. 2 things. It's been really interesting to see kind of the rise of Nathan Detmer. He was a guy that, if you look at him from just a physical standpoint, I mean, he's exactly the way you draw it up. But last year, he was more like an 88, 91 guy. Hashtag Coach Nathan has that dude sitting like 93, 95 right now with a nasty slider. So he's taken a big step forward. He had 9 Ks, I think 8 shutout last weekend against Georgia, against Georgia's offense. So, he's rising. And the other thing about A&M too, guys, is I don't think people realize this, but I want to say they're either like 1 or 2 in the SEC in offense right now. They're hitting 297 as a team. They hit 260 last year as a team, and they're hitting 297 right now. So that's obviously been a huge key for them.
If A&M gets in the tournament, the NCAA tournament, I mean, they're going to earn it because these next 5 weeks are not going to be cakewalk. Both Mississippi clubs, Arkansas, interesting. I see Mr. D. Martini's in the chat. How about this, boys?
He's back.
Not to be selfish, but I'm going to Fenway Park next weekend for that ALS game that they do.
Nice.
It's BC hosting Virginia Tech. So first of all, it's an incredible cause. Second of all, it's Fenway Park. Third of all, Virginia Tech is a blast. I mean, that position player group is really, really fun. I mean, they are a very interesting team. They are an interesting team for sure. I am all in on Tanner. By the way, Tanner Schobel responded to me on Twitter. It's Schobel is how you say his last name, not Scobel. Yeah, I don't know. Bad listener. Sorry. So, boys, I think that's what I got for you. Anything else? Anything
Well,
else
I
you'd
just
like
want
to
to
share?
say that I'm proud of Aaron. He kind of came into the podcast feeling like he wasn't necessarily ready. I thought he put in an A+ performance.
I
I
thought
agree.
it was workmanlike in my part.
He rallied.
But
Yeah.
as usual, the Runes brought the heat, the energy. You're a modern
Caliente.
marvel, Runes.
Yeah,
The ninth wonder of the world, isn't
I
he?
may have jinxed myself though. I was very aggressive on Twitter about being 15-5 over my last 2 weeks in the picks. So it's gonna be a real test case. Can you jinx yourself, or sometimes you're just so in the zone that you can't lose? Hashtag shoot or shoot. So we're gonna find out. So there you go. Fitzy's a grinder. Yes, he is, Joe Lacates. There's no, or Lacates, as we like to say. As they would say in what parish is MacNeese in? Are they doing parishes?
That is in Lake Charles Parish, isn't it?
Yeah, that's
I don't
right.
know.
Lake Charles. That's well said. Well said. Gentlemen, are we doing Wednesday or Thursday night for preview this week?
Thursday. I think
Thursday for the preview. We've got Nerdcast this week also.
Yes.
I believe.
Nerdcast tomorrow night.
Look for that
New
to drop
projections
on
Wednesday around 1 Central. Yeah. I'm always on time, so it'll be 1 Central sharp.
Yeah, of course.
Sharp.
The Nerdcast should also drop on Wednesday along with those projections. So it will not be a live show tomorrow night.
Oh, I love it. Love it. All right, let's cut it there, boys. You guys are going to podcast your brains out this weekend. I want you fresh. I need you fresh for the Nerdcast.
We're going to start. Hey, we keep going long. I'm going to start warming up over here.
That's right. Thank you for all the questions. Good crowd in the chat tonight. And the Nerdcast, like those guys said, will come out. We'll be back live on Thursday night. Thanks again to our friends at S2 Cognition. People, it's real. 5 weeks left. Conference tournament. It's go time, baby. Have a great week. We'll catch you on Thursday night. See ya.